to you, Shakir.
Thanks, Yao-Ting. Hi, everyone. Yeah, really happy to be here, and we'll be discussing cybersecurity in e-commerce. And special thanks to Rakuten for supporting this initiative, as well as to the Smart Nation team for organizing this webinar. So let's jump into the agenda for today. So first, we'll be starting with a poll to see what's everyone's perception of, how safe do you feel while shopping online. Then we'll be talking about why cybersecurity is taken seriously at Rakuten. Then we'll be giving you real life cases where cyber attacks actually happen, and each one of them gets progressively more and more interesting. And then we'll follow that by some cybersecurity strategies and frameworks that are in place to protect businesses and consumers. And then we'll end as well with a poll to see how much you've learned, as well as any questions that you may have. So that's a brief agenda for today. And before we begin, just a quick disclaimer that I will not be giving any sensitive details on the cybersecurity policies of either Rakuten or any other company. Also, I'm not aiming or intending to teach anyone how to be a cyber criminal or how to hack or anything like this. And also, I am not actually in the cybersecurity team of Rakuten myself. I'm in the AI team. So this is going to be more of an outside-in perspective of cybersecurity. All right. So let's first give a brief introduction about myself. So before we get into the poll, just a quick intro on me. I'm actually a product manager in Rakuten's AI team, where one of the programs I manage is the machine translation program. And the aim of that program is to basically build tools that enable Rakuten business units to provide multilingual services to their non-Japanese speaking customers. And so as part of this, we do multimodal translation, like website translation, images, speech, documents, and we we tune these models specifically for Rakuten use cases. So that's a brief introduction on myself. And I guess as a next step, we can maybe do the poll, Xiaoting. So just to see the general consensus of how everyone feels when they are shopping online. The first question is, how safe do you actually feel when making a purchase? Okay, so far only about 65% of people have answered. So yeah, maybe we can just wait a few seconds more for everyone to answer. Okay, so by far, people have voted neutral. So it seems like not everyone feels safe. Also, don't feel unsafe, but yeah, it's about neutral. So that's interesting. Maybe we can go to the next question. Okay, so the second question is, have you ever abandoned a shopping cart because you felt the site might not be secure? Okay, interesting. So seems like again, most people have voted occasionally, followed closely by rarely. So that's an interesting find. I was thinking most people would say frequently, that if the site doesn't seem secure, you would abandon the cart. But yeah, interesting that people seem to have the guts to still proceed and make the order. So it's good. Okay, maybe we can go to the final question. Okay, so the third question is, would you be willing to go through additional security checks like 2FA during checkout to get that added safety? Okay, interesting. So most people, regardless of the price of the product, would like to have additional authentication for all purchases. And then about 60% said yes for all purchases, and about 30 plus percent said only for high value purchases. And there's also a small, about 8% of people who said um, that they will actually avoid sites that ask for um, added security checks. So yeah, so again, it makes sense, for higher value products, it would be more essential to have these type of yeah authentications to prevent any funds being misappropriated. Okay, so that's interesting. I hope that set a good scene for what's about to come. So maybe we can proceed to the next slide. We can end the poll. Um, okay, so the next thing that we'll be discussing is actually why is cybersecurity taken seriously at Rakuten. So to explain this, it's important to first understand who Rakuten are. And as you can see, Rakuten is actually a very large a very large conglomerate, and they have over 70% business verticals and products and services that they sell, all the way from like having their own travel agency to having their own bank, as well as e-commerce, which is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, e-commerce marketplace in Japan, and it's called Rakuten Ichiba. And across Rakuten's entire ecosystem, there's over 1 billion members and an estimated 1 million daily online transactions. So there's a lot of activity going on, and a lot of customers that put their trust in Rakuten, and that's why Rakuten is taken very seriously. So to give you a glimpse on what Rakuten Ichiba is, so it's Rakuten's biggest marketplace, and it's an e-commerce marketplace, and they sell everything. There's over 50,000 merchants that are selling over 360 million products on the platform. And again, many daily transactions occur. And so this is just a quick glimpse of Rakuten. So again, for such a large scale, for a company that's doing commerce at such a large scale, um, the reason why it's so important to take cybersecurity seriously, obviously, number one, financial. Okay, so if any cyber criminals steal money, that results in Rakuten or any company losing revenue, right? It also impacts the customer directly if they pay for something, but their fund was sent into a hacker's account instead of the company's, then they lose that money and they don't receive the product. Also, stock performance or share performance of a company could be directly impacted by any cyber attacks, that make it look like it's not a secure marketplace to shop in. And that brings us to the second point, which is legal. So there's a lot of international as well as domestic regulations that any e-commerce or any major online retailer has to abide by. And if they breach, if there's any breach in these in any of the critical tasks that are set out in these regulations, then the companies could be subject to lawsuits and fines. And all of this leads to reputational damage, right? So there's many users who will stop trusting a brand if they've been subject to cyber attacks, and that has a negative impact on brand perception and can lead to negative word of mouth, which then can impact overall loyalty. So loyalty is a very important metric that many large e-commerce companies try to optimize towards, because that directly impacts how much a consumer will spend with them over their lifetime. Also impacts whether they refer this marketplace to other users. So that's why all financial, legal, reputational, and loyalty are key themes that could get impacted negatively if cybersecurity isn't taken seriously. And when we say cybersecurity, what we really mean is the protection of certain assets. And there is a few types of assets, for example, like users' personal information. So beyond just names and addresses, many e-commerce companies go even further and protect their users' account preferences or their search histories or their recently viewed items as they deem it necessary enough to protect, because it forms a type of competitive advantage. Also, financial information. So again, beyond just credit card details, also how much, say, referral fees a user has accumulated that's linked to their account, how many loyalty points they have, how many gift cards or how many gift card credits they have left. All of this is protected to make sure the user doesn't lose these points or these fees at any point in time, or it doesn't get stolen. And then away from the consumer side, but also the internal business side. So it's important to protect key details like supplier and vendor details, or the customer service records, or any internal analysis that is happening of customer data, as well as any internal companies memos that detail the new strategy plans. Again, this is all related to competitive advantage. So it's extremely important and critical to protect these assets to make sure they don't leak to other companies or competitors or anywhere else in the market where it can impact anyone's competitive advantage. So to protect these assets, Rakuten specifically has four-pronged strategy. So that encompasses cybersecurity, data privacy, information security management, and anti-fraud measures. So what's interesting to note here is that, cybersecurity, which is a topic today, is actually not it's not a means to an end in itself. It is just one of the many, or in this case, one of the four complete strategies that company like Rakuten has to take in order to protect their assets, right? The others being privacy and security management and anti-fraud measures as well. So now we'll talk a bit about, we've painted a picture about why it's important, but we'll also show you how difficult it is to actually implement cybersecurity measures, and also give you some examples as to what happens when companies fail to secure their cybersecurity landscape. So first, there's a few challenges. Okay, so the first and undoubtedly, a big challenge is that tactics are always changing. Cybersecurity measures definitely improve over time, but because of that, cyber criminals are always adjusting their tactics. So, for example, in the past, spam emails used to be a very big problem, where people would get emails from cyber criminals who would tempt them into clicking a link. But then email filters evolved, and they got better at putting spam email in the junk. So as that happened, attackers then started doing things like voice phishing, right? Where you'll get a call from someone claiming they're an MOH or ICA and then asking you to press a number or something. So hackers are always trying to stay one step ahead of companies. The second biggest issue is autonomous technology. So now, because of the advent of AI and machine learning, there's a lot of cyber criminals that are actually using machine learning to automate or to at least improve their attacks on cyber protocols. And there's many techniques, especially reinforcement learning, that basically with very little training can be sent to a backend system and try and find gaps in that backend system to exploit. And if it fails, then it will learn from the signals, learn from its failures itself, and try again until it succeeds. The third thing is underground markets. So there's a very large marketplace in the deep web that provides, an exchange for tools, cybersecurity tools and strategies, as well as stolen data that people can exchange. And this actually allows people who are even, relatively novice or unskilled at IT or computers to launch advanced attacks. And we'll be exploring this example in the next few slides. So all of these kind of challenges lead to probably the biggest challenge, which is resource asymmetry. And that means that, organizations have to protect a 360 view of their companies. They have to protect everything from consumer data to business data to suppliers data. There's so many things to protect, while a hacker just needs to find one vulnerability in one area. of the business, and that could give them access to a lot of data and a lot of sensitive information that they shouldn't have access to. And again, we'll be exploring a real life use case of this happening in the next slides. Okay. So now we'll be giving a bit of examples on the types of cyber attacks that were seen in the last few years and the impact that they had on companies. So this one is actually a personal attack that I was also affected by, and one of my products that I manage was affected by. So the Log4j vulnerability happened back in 2021. Basically this is within a JavaScript library that when you build APIs or web applications, it's used to log messages like what information was sent by a customer to the program, and also what information was then sent from the program back to the customer. And so as a result of this, hackers were able to steal information like what was information sent from a user to the program, as well as what the program gave back, as well as the customer's IP addresses and any other credentials that were transferred during the communication between the user and the program. And so this was remedied relatively quickly by the company that produced Log4j. But even after that patch was applied, many companies still had to, monitor for any exploitation, and they had to strengthen their kind of incident response plans to make sure that things like this don't happen again. Closer to home in Singapore, so I'm sure many of you would have heard that back in 2018 there was a very big data leak at SingHealth. So SingHealth, as you know, contains a database of all the patients that are using public healthcare in Singapore. And so during this data leak, 1.5 million patients' data was stolen, including PM Lee's data as well. And apart from just the names and ages and all this, there was a lot of sensitive data like NRIC numbers, as well as prescription and medical records that were seized. So again, the way that this happened was similar to what I mentioned before, which is the resource asymmetry. All a hacker had to do was to infect one computer in SingHealth's office with malware, and through that just one computer, the hackers were able to access the entire database of SingHealth. So that shows you how difficult it is to actually protect, a company's assets, where a hacker can just exploit one computer and get access to so many different forms of data. And the implications of this attack were, really huge, where the reputation of SingHealth and even Singapore to an extent took a bit of a hit. The CEO of SingHealth had to resign as a result, and SingHealth had to allocate millions of dollars to investigate and remedy the cause and fortify their defenses again. So a more e-commerce related example is a retailer in the UK called JD Sports that sells sports equipment, and they didn't mention how the hackers got into their systems, but they did reveal that over 10 million customer records were stolen over a 2-year period that took personal and financial data of these customers. And what the hackers did with that information is that through the emails addresses or even the physical addresses of those customers, they sent targeted phishing scams through email or through mail that would trick people to click on a link or to transfer money somewhere. So that's the type of things, that's the reasons or incentives that hackers have to actually steal all this data in the first place, is to target customers. Another one, which is more politically motivated, is actually a malware attack that happened on a program called SolarWinds. So SolarWinds is an IT administration software, and it's used by governments around the world, including the United States. And in 2020, again, what hackers did was, while this software was due for an upgrade, they inserted a piece of malicious code into the update so that whenever someone updated this software, and they started using the newly updated software, the hackers would have access to the government's business documents and source codes and sensitive passwords. And they were able to steal that data just by having a malicious code in the software update. So the next one, I know we're talking a lot about data leaks. So I also wanted to mention another type of cyber security lapse that can happen, which is called website defacement. So website defacement happens when someone hacks into a website and changes the content on the website and adds, pictures and images or whatever on that website. And again, as I mentioned, as a result of the impact of the deep web and resources available, two young hackers who were even less, one was 19, one was 25, they managed to hack the US Department of Justice website, and they hacked it through the content management system. So, for example, if you think about, tools like, say, Shopify, for example, where they have many plugins and they allow you to build a website. So by exploiting the vulnerability of just one plugin, hackers were able to gain entry into the content management system, take all the text and images out, and replace that text and images with their own anti-American messages. So again, these are just two youngsters who could hack into large government websites. So yeah, that's quite crazy, I thought. Also, one of the most famous ones, the most famous cyber attacks in recent history was the WannaCry ransomware attack. So this happened in 2017, and it is an attack that affected, over 200,000 computers in over 150 countries, and it was at a global scale. And what happened is, as you can see on the image on the screen, what happened is that hackers were able to exploit Windows OS system vulnerability. And what they did was that across all a lot of many like Windows PCs in the world, they basically gained access and they encrypted all the files on their computer. So you imagine if one day you open your computer and you get this type of message that says, all your important files have been encrypted and that you need to pay Bitcoin in order to release those files. Right, so this was especially, as mentioned, Russia, Ukraine, India, and Taiwan were one of the hardest hit countries, and a lot of public service, and public kind of infrastructure was affected. So hospitals, for example, had their records encrypted, and they couldn't, know what medicine to give to their patients. And so, yeah, this was a huge attack that kind of was a big wake-up call for the IT industry and for Microsoft as well to kind of fix these vulnerabilities. So that's a brief overview on, the types of cybersecurity challenges that we've seen in the last couple of years. So now we can touch upon a few examples of the cybersecurity strategies and tools that are in place to prevent these type of attacks from happening. So the first one is encryption. Okay, so if you have ever logged into a website, you would have seen that a lot of times your URL would have been secured by HTTPS. So what this is doing and what this is showing you is that all the data that you are from your laptop to the website's server is basically encrypted. So whether you're inputting any credit card details or your login, user and passwords, all of that is being encrypted so that if anyone does get access to it, they won't be able to read it. So that's one way that companies prevent these type of data leaks. Another is actually the data loss prevention system. And so what this is that if a data leak does happen and is detected, then a DLP system can identify whether this is occurring to an authorized or unauthorized party. And if it detects that it's unauthorized, then it will cut that data transfer from happening. So it's like a system that can detect and then quickly block any data from being leaked or any more data from being leaked. Then we have web application firewalls. So these firewalls actually prevent anyone from adding in code to a website. So this can prevent, attacks like the website defacement attack that we saw or in more modern day websites as well. If you have chatbots, this prevents certain chatbots from being hacked and displaying a malicious type of content. Then, of course, there's also machine learning. So one form of attack, which I didn't mention previously, but one form of attack is called DDoS. So in this type of attack, the hackers' aim is to basically, their intent is to overload the website so much that it goes down. So what they do is they will send bots to a website to access a website, and they will send like billions of bots so that the website servers cannot handle the traffic, and then the website will go down. So machine learning over here is employed to basically detect if there's any unusual anomalies or spikes in traffic. Then it will activate what is known as load balancers, which will then kind of send the traffic to multiple different servers, split equally, so that a higher load can be handled by more servers. And also, if it detects that actually these are not real humans, these are actually bots, then it will just block that bot from even getting access to the site in the first place. And then the final one, again, a machine learning technique, is user behavior analytics. So, whenever a user is making unusual attempts at logging in through an unusual location, for example, or if suddenly out of the blue they have made an unusually large purchase that they may not have made before, or if they're suddenly making changes to their account settings after being dormant for a while, then all these signals can be input into machine learning models that can output whether this is something that should be investigated or whether this is something that is normal and still fine. So these are some of the type of techniques that are employed. This is not exhaustive. These are just some of the few techniques that that businesses incorporate to ensure the security of both their business data as well as consumers' data. Okay, so now again we have reached the end of the slides, and so again we can maybe have another poll to see. Occasionally you will notice that you yourself unknowingly sometimes interact with cybersecurity tools when you're shopping online or when you're browsing online. So we'll see. We'll have a poll to see whether you actually recognize some of the tools that you interact with, and whether you know the purpose behind these tools and what they're actually there to prevent. So yeah, Xiaoting, if we can we can maybe initiate the poll. Okay. Okay, so yeah, the first question, quite simple, hopefully. So yeah, why are CAPTCHAs deployed? What are they trying to detect? Okay, so far about 60% of people have answered. And yeah, majority of people have got the right answer, which is that it is intended to detect and block automated non-human bots that are attempting to access a website. Yeah. Okay, maybe we can go to the next question. Okay. So the next question is, yeah, what are firewalls primarily designed to do? Okay, so everyone, like 98% of people have said the correct answer, which is protect web apps from infiltration. Okay, yeah, maybe we can go to the next question. Okay, so the next question is, what is the SSL or the TSL certificates that are usually seen on HTTPS protocols designed to protect. Okay, yeah, I think everyone or 90 about 90% of people got that right as well, where all these certificates are essentially designed to protect any information that is being transferred between a web server and or the user's browser and the web server. So that includes passwords, that includes credit cards, that also includes your IP addresses, and any other information that's being transmitted. So yeah, basically it's designed to encrypt everything. Okay, I feel I should have included harder questions because I think you guys answered that very well. So I think maybe the questions were a bit too easy. So maybe next time I'll make the questions a bit more difficult. But yeah, thanks a lot for listening and for yeah, for paying attention as well. And if there's any questions, and we can proceed to the question and answer